Hi, I'm Father Jim Forson, and I'd like to share with you some reflections on the gospel of this 22nd Sunday in Ordinary Time. Can you imagine being invited to a dinner where you know everybody at that dinner does not like you at all? Now, it would be bad enough to have a dinner that you had to invite somebody that you didn't like. But can you imagine being invited to a dinner that nobody liked you? How uncomfortable that would be. Well, that's pretty much the situation Jesus finds himself in the gospel today. He is being invited to a leading Pharisee's house for a banquet, and all the other rich and powerful people and the Pharisees are all there gathering around, and they can't stand him. And he knows it. And it even says in the gospel, they were watching him closely, or a better way of saying it, they were eyeing him. They were looking for a mistake he would make, some word he would use in error, so they could pounce on him, so they have something to arrest him for. Now, imagine being at a dinner like that with those kind of people. Who would ever want that? But Jesus did, and he went to that banquet. And he does something that is borderline rude, where he's looking at all of these people who are clamoring for places of honor, and he says to the host, you shouldn't have invited them at all. You know who you should have invited? Are the poor, the lame, the blind, the people who can't repay you. They're the ones you should invite. Now, could you imagine going to a dinner of people that you knew didn't like you and then saying to them, what do you invite all these losers for? Look at these people. You should have invited a whole different crowd altogether. I mean, that's so close to being rude. But Jesus isn't saying it just to insult people at all. He is saying it because he's trying to show them a new path, a different way to walk through this life toward the kingdom. And he's warning them, be humble, or else you will be humbled. To live a life of humility, or else you will be humiliated. And later on in the gospel, he uses parables where he says all of the Pharisees and the scribes and the powerful of the day are along the sides of the road, and down the road are coming all of those who will enter the kingdom of heaven, the poor, the lame, the blind, all of the outcasts. They get to sit at the heavenly banquet, not the rich and powerful. And how humiliating it would be to be a leader of the people, someone who is esteemed in this life, and to see that there's no place for them in heaven. How humiliating that this quote-unquote riffraff gets in and I don't. Jesus warns them, be humble or else you will be humbled. So, how do we live a humble life? Well, I think there's two ways. The first way is by realizing that who I am and who God is. And I am not God. And neither is anybody around me. I saw on TV the other day a politician who had written on his hat, I have been right about everything. And I thought to myself, are you kidding me? You're right about everything? Nobody is right about everything. Nobody's God. And I think that's the path to living a humble life, to realize and make room for the fact that people around me are weak and they make mistakes. And so do I. I'm not God and neither are they. And the second way to live a life of humility is by following the advice that Jesus gives in the gospel to all of those Pharisees who were not open to hear that advice one bit. And he says, look around you for the poor, the people who are the least, and lift them up. And he says that to them and he says that to us. Look around in your little world that you live in and ask yourself, who is the downtrodden? Who are the poor? Who are the people most in need of being lifted up? And they are the ones to invite to the banquet. You know, I was talking to this coach who years ago was working as an assistant coach at this junior high school. And the coach, choosing a football team, had gone through the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and he chose, obviously, the best of the best. And they were the A team. And the assistant coach then could be able to form the B team. And he was telling me how there was this one great big clunky, kind of awkward, uncoordinated kid that all the other kids made fun of all the time because he was so clunky and uncoordinated. And this coach told me that he picked that boy first. He told me he picked him first because he wanted to give that poor kid something to lift up his head, to have bragging rights on, to be able to know and others to know that he was the one chosen first. And I asked the coach, how was he? Was he a pretty good player? And the coach said to me, oh no, he was terrible. He couldn't play a lick, but he was coachable. And so over time, little by little by little, this big, clunky, awkward kid got good. And how good did he get? Well, he eventually was given a 4-year scholarship to Stanford for their football team. And then later on, after college, was drafted by the Miami Dolphins, where he's playing right now professional football. So tell me, did that coach lift up the poor? Take someone that people were belittling and make something great out of them? Help them to make something great of themselves? Yes, yes. That's what it means to lift up the poor. And not just like that, but there's another way too. Now, I don't want to get really, really political here at all. I just want to tell you my experience. That right now in our country, we've got a terrible problem with undocumented immigrants. And I'm not talking about the ones who are breaking the law and are murdering or stealing or things like that. I'm not talking about them. The immigrants I'm talking about are the ones that were in my parishes. They were the ones who were mowing our lawns and picking our fruit, who are driving across town in buses to be able to clean our houses or take care of our old folks. Those are the ones that were in my parish sitting in the pews. They are, I think, the poor, the marginalized. I remember one time, one of the choir members in a parish I worked in had just bought himself and his wife and 4 kids a little place to live, a condominium, and he wanted me to come on over and bless it. And so I did. I went to the condominium, and it was a small little condominium, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. And I saw that and I thought, yeesh, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath for 2 parents and 4 kids? This is gonna be tight. I don't know. But he said to me, and to my shame, I remember this story. He said, Father, I never thought I would ever have a place as nice as this. I never dreamed it could ever be true in my life. He was so proud of that little tiny condominium. It put me to shame because I was seeing it through different eyes, the eyes of someone undoubtedly far wealthier than he in background. And he was so proud of it, and it embarrassed me. And from that moment on, I said to myself, whatever this man needs, he gets from me. You bet. To be able to lift him up, absolutely. And it just made him so proud just to have someone come and bless his house. The poor immigrant or undocumented that were in my parishes, they're not, as sometimes they're described as, sucking up all our welfare dollars or things like that. They're not. They take up such little space, and they look for so little, and they work so hard. They need to be lifted up too. And I think we need to find a way to be able to treat the undocumented immigrant in a way that respects their dignity. I don't know how to solve the problem in the country. I don't know all the solutions that are able to be done. I don't. But I do know that those children of God, need to be lifted up. And we had better do it. So, today we're challenged to look for the poor that are around us, like that coach did, to look for the people around us whose hearts are heavy, or people around us who live marginalized lives, or people around us that are belittled, people around us who would love just a moment's worth of attention. Will you come and bless my house? Bless me with your presence. We're called to find those poor around us and to find a way to lift them up and to find a way to invite them to the banquet table that is mine.